Chuck Schumer just made the most catastrophic political miscalculation in modern Senate history.
Democrats' favorability among Americans is at its lowest point in the history of CNN's polling back to 1992. Only 28% of Americans view the Democratic Party favorably. How can you guys turn that around?
I mean, the Democrat Party is the party of weakness in the eyes of the supermajority.
America's political earthquake just hit Washington, and Democrats got wrecked by a brutal new poll that shows Schumer's shutdown backfired. The so-called Schumer shutdown was meant to corner Republicans, but instead it's blowing up in the Democrats' faces, exposing a level of miscalculation we haven't seen in decades. And the latest polls don't just reveal public backlash, but also show the collapse of a party that gambled with the government and lost the nation's trust overnight.
62% of respondents believe that Trump and the Republicans will win the government shutdown. Only 38% think the Democrats are going to come out of this victorious. Even
the government shutdown has entered full swing, and the numbers are unmistakable. According to the latest Harvard-Harris poll, 62% of Americans say Trump and the Republicans are in control of the fight, and 65% want Schumer's side to accept the clean continuing resolution deal already sitting on the table.
65%, a supermajority, want the Democrats to end this shutdown by accepting the clean continuing resolution, keeping current spending levels as passed by the Republicans.
That data hits harder than any press briefing. And the country's done playing along. Federal workers are sitting at home without paychecks, airports are tightening, and the public sees one side holding the match. Schumer built this fight to look tough. Instead, it's painting his party as reckless, out of touch, and completely cornered.
Numbers only get higher. It's only going to climb as this shutdown lingers on.
History's got a brutal pattern. The side making the demands always ends up wearing the blame. And right now, every number says the same thing. Democrats lit this fuse, and now they're the ones standing in the smoke.
NPR Morris poll shows that only 26% of registered voters
inside the Democratic Party, the pressure is coming from within their own walls. The shutdown turned their talking points into crossfire, and now party unity looks more like a slow-motion implosion. Only 26% of registered voters say they approve of the Democratic Party's direction, and even among Democrats, barely half still back their own leadership. The energy that once powered their base has flipped, frustration replacing enthusiasm, confusion replacing confidence.
Chuck Schumer, who has the lowest approval rating of any member of Congress.
Chuck Schumer sits right in the middle of that storm. Progressives want a fight that never ends, while moderates are desperate to reopen the government and move on. Every passing day widens the fault line. What began as a display of control has turned into an open struggle over who actually runs the party.
Presents what we might call a masterclass in strategic patience.
While one side floods the cameras with speeches and blame, the other side says nothing, and that silence hits harder than any headline. It's a pure masterclass in strategic patience. The noise comes from one direction, and that's exactly the plan. By staying off the stage, the focus never shifts. Every clip, every quote, every headline loops back to one story: Democratic chaos.
What the American people thought that he was going to do. Indeed, if you look at the numbers, Trump has basically the steadiest favorable rating this much through a presidency of any president.
It's a move straight out of a high-stakes playbook, letting the opposition drain their oxygen while the country watches who's actually running the show. The longer the cameras stay locked on Schumer's pressers and party infighting, the more this shutdown looks like a one-sided breakdown. Each day, the shutdown continues. Washington's balance of power changes. Congress is stalled, but the system keeps moving. Federal agencies still function, decisions still need signatures, and that authority now runs through one office, the executive branch.
Democrats will lose this particular battle. Voters have already decided on that outcome.
Every unresolved day transfers more operational control away from lawmakers and toward the administration. Oversight slows, policy execution centralizes, and the legislative gridlock strengthens the hand of the presidency. This is the quiet outcome of every prolonged shutdown. Power doesn't disappear, it relocates, and by the time Congress reopens, much of that authority will already be sitting somewhere else.
for sure. In fact, the latest CBS YouGov poll asked voters, look at this, they asked voters what words come to mind when they think of the Democrats.
The latest polling delivers the clearest message yet. The country has already chosen a side. Recent polling from major outlets, including the New York Times and CBSY YouGov, tracks the same trend, now cutting across every demographic line. A steady majority connects the shutdown directly to Democratic leadership. The longer the shutdown lasts, the more those numbers harden. Approval gaps widen, trust erodes, and the perception of control keeps shifting. For the public, this isn't about ideology anymore, it's about management. And the data shows who looks in command and who doesn't.
Look at this, net popularity of socialism among Democrats. You go back to 2010, it was plus 7 points. Look how high it is now, up like a rocket, up to plus 36 points. That's a jump of nearly 30 points on the net popularity scale among Democrats in just 15 years.
Beneath the shutdown chaos, the deeper problem sits in the numbers that rarely make the headlines. Poll after poll shows a widening gap between the Democratic base and the rest of the country, not just on policy, but on philosophy itself. Among Democratic voters, support for socialism has surged from plus 7 in 2010 to plus 36 today, while belief in capitalism has slipped into the negatives. Across the general population, the picture flips completely. Capitalism plus 12, socialism 18.
Think the idea of having a socialist mayor is a good idea. Matching what we see nationally, the bottom line is socialism isn't a dirty word among Democrats at this particular point. It's actually a word that won't attach Democrats.
That divide explains the standoff better than any press release. One half of the party is chasing a worldview most Americans reject, while the other half is trying to keep its footing in reality. It's a split not over tactics, but over identity, whether the party wants to speak for working Americans or for the activists shouting the loudest online. And it's showing up everywhere. Campaign slogans built around redistribution, spending plans that read like wish lists, and rhetoric that plays well on Twitter but collapses in swing districts. Every new poll confirms the same thing. The further this agenda drifts from mainstream economics, the smaller the tent becomes.
Polls show that while the vast majority of the country, a majority of Republicans, a majority of independents, a vast majority of the country want the Democrats to work with Trump and the Republicans.
Every move coming out of the Democratic leadership now feels less like strategy and more like survival. The shutdown wasn't planned strength. It was a reflex, a reaction from a party trying to prove it still has control. After months of sliding numbers and open infighting, they needed a moment to look united. Instead, they picked the worst battlefield possible. This is what happens when politics turns defensive. Every statement sounds forced, every press event looks staged, and every demand feels like it was made just to keep the headlines moving for one more day. The base wanted a fight. The leadership gave them one, but without an exit plan.
Jones is saying this is yet another example of the Democrats doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. And then he added, for the right reasons. I certainly do not agree with that latter assessment. I think their desperation is hardly a right reason.
Even voices inside their own camp, like Van Jones, are admitting it. The Democrats are doing the wrong thing at the wrong time. It's not a partisan critique. It's a recognition of how far this shutdown has drifted from purpose. The issue isn't just the standoff itself, it's what it reveals. A party chasing confrontation instead of coordination, performance instead of policy. At this point, it's not about which side blinks first. It's about which side still knows why it's fighting.
This polling data doesn't just predict Republican success in ending the shutdown. It forecasts a broader political realignment where Democrats' progressive capture.
Inside the Democratic machine, the real struggle isn't left versus right. It's control versus collapse. Chuck Schumer is boxed in by the very movement he helped empower. Appease the progressive activists, and he loses the moderates. Appease the moderates, and the activists come for his seat. It's a loop with no exit, what analysts are calling the progressive capture. That capture is shaping every decision. Policies get written to please a narrow online minority instead of the broader electorate. Every primary season, the candidates drift further left to survive their own base, only to find those same positions toxic in a general election. It's a cycle that repeats until the center is gone and the party's identity becomes unrecognizable.
As the Democrats' favorability among Americans is at its lowest point in the history of CNN's polling back to 1992. Only 28% of Americans view the Democratic Party favorably. How can you guys turn that around?
The shutdown exposed it in real time. This wasn't a united front, it was a leadership trapped between two fires, hoping the smoke would look like strategy. But voters can see it. They see a party held hostage by its loudest wing, afraid to compromise, afraid to lead. And that's how power doesn't just fade, it fractures. While Democrats wrestle with blame and branding, the other side is quietly stacking wins. The contrast is sharp. One party arguing over who caused the shutdown, the other pointing to numbers that actually move. Inflation down from its peak. Gas and grocery prices are stabilizing. Jobs holding steady. It's a measurable outcome that voters feel every time they check a receipt.
As of right now, inflation is lower today than when President Trump took office. Gas prices are lower today than when President Trump took office. The price of eggs are lower. So he's going to make the economic message. We just need to make sure that it extends for another year and a half so that the voters continue to feel it.
That's the message resonating. Results over noise. The promises made, promises kept slogan that once sounded like campaign fluff now plays like a scoreboard. Each week of Democratic paralysis makes that difference louder. Republicans don't have to claim victory. The economy's doing it for them.
Voters are increasingly recognizing that it's the Democrats who are the ones demanding policy changes, while Republicans simply want to maintain current.
And that's the real shift. Perception turned tangible. While Democrats debate ideology, Republicans are talking about output, jobs, wages, and calm. In a shutdown built on optics, the side that looks functional automatically wins. The crisis is exposing a major political shift. Democrats are shrinking into an activist core while Republicans attract independents seeking stability. It's less about policies and more about who can govern responsibly. The shutdown accelerated Democrats' decline, turning internal cracks into public collapse and signaling a long-term loss of voter confidence.